Hello, friends, and welcome to What the Fringe, the podcast dedicated to all things Fringe theater. I'm your host, Lauren Hance. Each week, I visit with a Fringe artist to hear all about their endeavors and gain insight into their process. This week, I'm visiting with Casey J. Andrews, who is involved with a myriad of projects throughout 2026. First up is Feast of Words, her newest show. It is a supper club celebrating the art of storytelling, live music, and shared food. Around the table, poets, playwrights, authors, and musicians pair stories and music with three-course tasting menu of small seasonal plates crafted by the head chef of Treasury 1860. Gather in the beautiful courtyard of Treasury 1860 for an evening of delicious words and bespoke dishes, hosted by multi-award-winning writer and designer Casey J. Andrews and composer Jack Brett. Her other show is The Wild, Unfeeling World. It's a tender, furious, and fragile reimagining of Moby Dick. It's 4:30 a.m. Dylan is lying on the rooftop of a multi-story car park in southwest London. She watches as jumbo jets rumble into the crisp dawn, a surreal and lyrical suburban fable about recklessly seeking something that is out of your grasp.
Well, that's a really good question. I think a starting point for me is always thinking about the shows that I love. What do I love watching and seeing, and what do I enjoy consuming art-wise? What do I enjoy reading and watching? And so I'm always trying to think about, well, what show would I like to see? And that's always got to be the show that I'm going to make. It's like, what do I actually want to watch? And I don't think you can start from anywhere but there. If you're starting from a different point, what does someone else want to see? Then that's not how I can't work like that. And the shows that I like to watch, I love shows where I can go and connect with an artist or a story. And I mean, ultimately, I want to go and sit in the dark and cry. That's what I love.
Casey J. Andrews is a multi-award-winning writer, designer, theater maker based in the southeast of England. Casey J. has worked with Punch Drunk and Punch Drunk Enrichment since 2020. She is the designer of Punch Drunk's Viola's Room, which has run in London and New York and won Best Design of the Off West End Awards. She's an associate artist of Punch Drunk Enrichment, and previous roles there include senior designer and assistant head of design on Punch Drunk's The Burnt City. As a writer and theater maker, Casey J. won the overall Best Theater Award at the Adelaide Fringe in 2023 for A Place That Belongs to Monsters, and she was named in the stage's Best Show of the Year. She won a Fringe First Award at the 2018 Edinburgh Fringe for The Archive of an Educated Hearts, which went on to have its North American debut at Soho Playhouse in New York. She will be bringing back an old favorite of Adelaide for 2026, The Wild, Unfeeling World, which was recommended in The Guardian's top shows of Edinburgh 2019 and Vault Festival 2020, as well as picking up a Best Theatre Weekly Award at the 2020 Adelaide Fringe. She is represented by literary agent Jess Malloy at Curtis Brown and is currently adapting A Place That Belongs to Monsters into her first novel. Casey J., welcome to What the Fringe!
Hello, thank you so much for having me, Lauren. Really great to be talking to you today.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so excited to have you here. So we got connected through Joanne Hartstone. She helps produce you there in Adelaide, and I had her on the program last season, and she's become a friend and mentor, and I absolutely love her. And I was like, hey, I want to feature some of your performers this year on the podcast. And she was like, Casey J., you gotta get her. And I was like, all right. So I'm super excited. And I have heard really great things about your shows. Someone on my team, on my artistic team, was raving about Oh My Heart, My Home that you did last year. So word gets around. You're great.
Well, thank you. I'm really flattered.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited. So let's start with talking a little bit about you as an artist. I mean, you're a designer, you're a theater maker, you do lots of different things. You're a multi-disciplinary artist. So tell me, what was childhood like for you? Were you like always exploring your creativity? Like, were your parents... Either were they artists or were they befuddled by this artistic child who is, playing drums and speaking? And I don't know. I'm making up a whole life for you of what I imagined you did. And I can imagine it involved food. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, my parents had very sort of normal jobs. They didn't work in theatre, But I think that, my creativity definitely was encouraged from a really young age. I remember that, like, every day when I come home from nursery in the afternoon, my mum would have a different craft activity that we would do together, whether that was, like, I remember this specific one where she got this, like, the washing up bowl from the sink, and we were making little paper boats, and I was just making little cutouts of me and my cousins and sticking them in all the different boats, colouring them in. So, I don't know, creativity and crafting was always a part of my childhood. And, as I would join and do any activity, any club, any extracurricular activity the school was offering, I would be there. It didn't matter what it was or if I was good at it. I just wanted to be involved in everything. I was just very enthusiastic. And so, yeah, I think that's carried through to my career now. It's a selection of lots of different things. But I feel like when I talk to people about it and they're like, oh, what would you choose between, designing or writing or directing? And actually, for me, they're all so connected. I feel like they're all part of my artistic practice, and I'm really pleased about that. It kind of wasn't by design that happened, but now when I look back, I'm like, it makes complete sense that I do all of these things because they all feed each other. So, I feel very lucky that I get to do a variety of different things. I think it's amazing, and the variety makes everything much more exciting.
Yeah. How do you see kind of the connectivity of your disciplines? And you talked about how they feed each other. Tell me more about that. I love how you express that.
What strikes me as something that I think kind of articulates how they're all connected is that in my writing, a lot of my writing, particularly for solo shows, tends to be, it's very visual, it's very descriptive. There was a show I remember from years ago in Edinburgh. It was an Annie Siddons show, and I love her writing. She's so brilliant. She's a British playwright, and she was doing a show. It was just her and a guitarist. It's called Raymondo, and I came out of the show with a director friend of mine, and we talked and talked and talked about this. It was kind of it was like a surreal fable. And we were talking about it in visual terms, even though it was just her and this guitarist on stage with a few props, a few lamps and a few rugs. And we were talking about these vast sort of cinematic landscapes. And I think that has had a huge impact on my work, because then when I'm writing, I kind of write in the visual way that I think. And when I'm designing, the way that I communicate my ideas kind of relates back to the way that I write. And I suppose all the work at Punch Drunk, I loved Punch Drunk so much before I worked for them. I saw them years ago and I thought I have to work for that company. And the visual language of Punch Drunk is always so cinematic. And that's what I think appealed to me about it. And then that's the thread I see going through a lot of my design work or my writing, is that whether it is something really small scale and it's just like a story that is told in the simplest way with no tech, that still has the kind of capacity to be this big, vast landscape. Or, it's a big Punch Drunk show where we are going to make the big, vast cinematic landscape. So, yeah, I think that's the way they kind of feed back and forth between design and writing anyway. And it just kind of talks to the way that I think about things and see things as I'm creating work. I'm always seeing the visual of it, whether I'm writing or whether I'm designing.
I think that comes through when an artist really kind of understands that or takes kind of all these different ideas. Like you were saying, you saw this show that was just lamps and rugs and, the guy playing the guitar, and you saw everything. And I've been in shows like that where the world comes alive. And I think that's one thing I love about Fringe, is because you have all these constraints, right? So you have to kind of create that. And so when you get an artist like yourself that thinks visually, I don't really think visually. So I'm always like mesmerized by people that can do that. It's amazing what the audience actually sees.
Yes, I agree. I tried to see a lot of things. I tried even harder when I was younger and really cutting my teeth. I tried to see as much as possible, including things that I didn't like, because I thought that was the most useful way to learn how to make something that you like, is to see everything and learn what you like and what you don't like. But the Fringe, it's consistently inspired me, and it's consistently, I've seen shows that they've stuck with me for years, and they must have been, on a fraction of the budget of these huge things I was watching at the National Theatre that kind of, you could ask me a question about it the following week and I'd have completely forgotten what happened.
Isn't that interesting? So I feel like those personal shows are what really kind of touch your heart and what can be the beauty of Fringe, right?
Yeah.
I love Fringe. I just found it a few years ago and I just absolutely, absolutely love it. Well, we'll kind of get in on that because your work, and I think Joanne was interested. She was like, I think you're going to love Casey J's stuff because it's similar to yours. The feeling that I'm getting is that it's tender and moody and like connective. And so what drives you as an artist? They're kind of that interaction with the audience and what you're wanting to kind of do for them. How are you wanting to share the world with them?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think a starting point for me is always thinking about the shows that I love. What do I love watching and see? And what do I enjoy consuming art-wise? What do I enjoy reading and watching? And so I'm always trying to think about, well, what show would I like to see? And that's always got to be the show that I'm going to make. It's like, what do I actually want to watch? And I don't think you can start from anywhere but there. If you're starting from a different point, what does someone else want to see? Then that's not how I can't work like that. And the shows that I like to watch, I love shows where I can go and connect with an artist or a story. And I mean, ultimately, I want to go and sit in the dark and cry. That's what I love. I know that I've really emotionally connected with the show if I'm sitting wherever and crying because something about it, maybe it's just a single line, or maybe it's the whole arc of the story, or maybe it's just a single picture in the story, some image that has just connected with me, and it's maybe sparked off another connection to something in my own life, and it's made me think about something in a different way, or it's reminded me of a feeling that I've had, or it's just made me think, like, it's that comfort of knowing, like, oh my God, someone else feels like that as well. Someone's articulated something that I've felt. So those are the ones that I like watching. So that's what I try to make. To varying degrees of success, I'm sure. And I think that's the beauty of any show. I mean, you're going to have a show that really deeply connects with one person. And I think that's valuable. When I first started out at the Fringe, when I was like a student company, we went up there. We had a company called Hook Hitch Theatre, and we did lots of really folky shows. And we went up going, if we can just be one person's favourite show, then we've achieved something. And that's, I kind of always try and remind myself to hold on to that really naive version of myself going up as a student for the first time, just hoping that somebody liked it. Because I think that still counts. I think, yeah, if you're one person's favourite thing, if you really connect with one person, then that's really valuable. I think that empathy is so important. I think that the reason that storytelling endures and has endured over, the whole of human existence is because it's just connecting with people and saying, like, hey, we experience these things too, and so you just don't feel as alone in the world. And I think that's really cheesy, but I do think it's true.
That's like what drives me. I'm constantly don't want people to feel alone, like my art as well. I don't think that's cheesy at all, is what I'm saying. It's just, I mean, that's like stuff I'll put throughout my copy. I want us to feel less alone. And I think that's really important in this day and time, because we have the connectivity is online and it's not real. And theater is about being in the same space at the same time with a group of people experiencing something together. Not something I recorded yesterday or 3 weeks ago and I threw up on there and you're looking at it while you're watching TV and you're doing or even a film, right? I mean, I was watching a film last night with my kids, scrolling my phone, it was something I'd seen before, so I wasn't like totally disengaged, but in theater, we want that connection and to feel a part of something, and that's the beauty of it. So I don't say that's cheesy at all. Give yourself more credit. So you're a collaborator as well. I mean, I hear that. I mean, you're collaborating with your audience as you're making something, but you also do a lot of creative work and collaborate. One of your big collaborators is your friend Jack. And tell me about kind of that working relationship and what kinds of shows you all have worked on.
Okay, so me and Jack Brett, we've known each other for over a decade. We both met when we were studying, and we went on tour together with my old student theatre company. And then years later, I'd been doing my career as a designer had sort of taken off, so that was what I was doing as my main job. But I was still making solo work in between because I loved doing it. I loved writing, and I like going to the Fringe. I feel like it really fuels my creativity to make those shows and to see other people's shows. And I'd been doing the solo shows for such a long time that I'd started making this show called Oh My Heart, Oh My Home. And I was making that off the back of COVID. I was thinking about connection, and I was thinking about the contradiction between, I actually found during COVID, because we were isolated from our friends and family, but it meant that I was speaking to some members of my family and connecting with some friends in a more deep and meaningful way than I had done for years, because the busyness of life had quietened down. And I was kind of interested in the contradiction of being separated but finding these connections. So I wanted to make a show about returning back to an old family home and dealing with a sense of loss. And when I finished at the Burnt City at Punch Drunk, we were clearing out our prop store, loads of old props that we'd had for years and that were going to go to the skip. And so our head of design had said, oh, if there's anything with a big green cross on it, take it. Go and have a look around if anyone wants anything. So we were sort of having a nose around for anything with a big green cross that was going to get put in the bin. And I found this doll's house. It wasn't beautiful at the time, but I saw the potential in it. So I had this doll's house, and I had this idea of, I wanted to do a show that was actually a meeting of my work as a designer and my work as a writer. So I wanted to do a storytelling show that actually visually kind of came to life in the form of this doll's house. So it was a bit like an advent calendar, really, where like every part of the story, a new room revealed itself, and it's all lit up inside. There was lots of small, tiny details, but also projection mapping into the house, so you could suddenly the room would come to life with the sort of the memories falling out of the walls and seeing old family members moving around in this tiny house on the hill. So I'm making this show, and me and the director were working on it. It was all going well. The music was going to be pre-recorded, and it got to about 3 or 4 weeks before Edinburgh Fringe, and I was like, I just think that it should be live scored. There should be live music. So I phoned 3 brilliant musicians and artists that I know, hoping that one of them would be mad enough to say, yeah, I'm not doing anything in August. I'll drop everything and I'll come up to Edinburgh with you. And one of them was Jack. And so he came and he finished making the show with me and live scored it. And it was absolutely gorgeous. The show went down really well in Edinburgh, and it sold out. And then we took it to Washington, DC, and we had a beautiful time at the Studio Theatre in Washington, DC. It was absolutely amazing. And it just started this snowball that as soon as me and Jack were working together, we were talking about the next project and what else we would like to make, and talking about what our goals are as artists, and thinking about why we do any of this, and what kind of art is the art that we want to make. So we were just always really excited, not just about like moving on to the next project, but actually who we are as artists. And I think that's why we've carried on working together. And so what's really exciting is Jack he's doing his solo show, which is brand new, Bedbug, in Adelaide when we're there. So we're working on one show together, Feast of Words, which is our supper club where we're telling stories and we're playing music. And it's not just us telling stories, there's going to be guest storytellers and local storytellers. So we're working on that together. And then I'm doing a solo show separately from that. And then Jack is doing his solo show, Bedbug, separately. And so he's in the process of making it as we speak.
That's exciting. I love that you were like, a couple weeks before Edinburgh, I need some live music. Let's just bring somebody in. That is absolutely brilliant. And to me, very daring. I think I'm really structured. I mean, I'm an improviser though as well. So, I mean, I can go with the flow, but sometimes like when I'm creating my own work, bringing something in that late would kind of bring a lot of anxiety up. But I think when you know the work needs what it needs, then you just kind of move forward and do it.
Yeah, it's really lovely. It's lovely when you find someone as an artist, or you find collaborators that you that you fully trust artistically. And I think that was the thing that made that completely impulsive and wild decision to bring a curveball in last minute to Oh My Heart, Oh My Home. That is the thing that made it okay, is that I knew that I had complete trust in what he was going to bring to it, and I knew that it was going to improve the show. And it paid off, because that show, it went down so well, and the music just elevated it so much. I suppose it's that cinematic quality that suddenly this tiny house kind of expanded, and, you know, the universe kind of caved in on this tiny little model house that we'd made.
Well, let's talk about the shows that you're doing this year. So we've got the Wild Unfeeling World, which is something that you've been running for how long have you been running that show? Have you been doing that one?
I first wrote it in 2019, but I haven't done it for years. I think the last time I did it was maybe 2022. So just on the first Fringe back after COVID. I love it. It's one of my favourites. And I was talking to Jack about the show when we were thinking about what to take to Adelaide. And then I decided that I should bring it back. I'm so proud of it. And I think it's not often that you get one that you can look back on in 5 years and still really back. And I'm really excited about how that story unfolds. I mean, look, I've taken on an American classic. I think it's true to my reading of Moby Dick, because I find Moby Dick so fascinating and interesting and weird. If you're a diehard fan of Moby Dick, you'll either love it or hate it, but it's absolutely littered with... There's just so many beautiful passages in Moby Dick that are about so much more than chasing a big whale. So that was what excited me about it. It's like, how can you write a show that's about one thing, but it's about so much else at the same time? I mean, that's any good show, isn't it? But... Very excited to see the show. Let's talk about your new show, Feast of Words. I'm very, very excited about this. I have so many questions. I'm probably going to just throw 50 at you right now. I'm going to try really hard not to. But this is the show where people eat, their storytelling and all of this kind of stuff. How did you come out with this? It looks like you're partnering with Jack, and then you've got a chef. Why? Like, why this show? Why now? What made you want to do this? I really love the kind of stripped back storytelling. I love the connection part of it, and the actual thing that is enjoyable in an evening to me is sitting around a dinner table with my friends and hearing them tell stories and telling stories. And I wanted to capture that in an evening. I wanted to create the event that I would want to go and see, and in a place that I want to spend time. And I found it really interesting, the idea of pairing the food with the stories as well. So it's all connected. Thematically, it's all connected, and actually collaborating creatively with the chef. So the whole thing is tied together. I was really inspired by when I was last in New York. I was there about 7 months ago with Punch Drunk, because we put Viola's room into the Shed in New York, and I was there for about a month. And while I was there, I went and saw one of the Moth Story Slam nights, which I love. Going to the one in Brooklyn was phenomenal. It was just amazing. And, you know, the people running it were the people who set up the Moth. And there was this energy. And then the variety of stories was just phenomenal. Like, I went from laughing hysterically at one person's story to like absolutely just welling up at other stories. And the theme, I was just wanting to go and see a Moth Story Slam, and the only one that was on while I was there that I could get to, the theme was hospitality. And I thought, oh well, that's not going to be like my favourite theme, but whatever. And it was so brilliant. It was so brilliant. So that was a big inspiration. And there's storytelling nights around London that I love as well. My friend James Rowland used to run a storytelling club, the Last Thursday Club, at a brewery. And again, it was so lovely. We'd just turn up there the last Thursday of every month and hear stories, tell stories. He'd have guest storytellers in, he'd tell stories. And so it was a really relaxed and enjoyable way to hear stories. In the same way that like a kind of like an open mic night or like a little folky music night might develop and evolve. I've been wanting to put together a night like that for a while, and I thought Adelaide would be a perfect place to launch it. And a really good friend of mine runs the Treasury 1860, and so I spoke to her, Anna Thomas, who's excellent, and she's got a show that she pairs with a flight of wines called How to Drink Wine Like a Wanker. And so I thought, well, she's the person I've got to speak to about pairing stories with food then, and she's the one that's kind of helped make the collaboration with the food happen. So that's how the idea came together, and it really is genuinely because that's my best way to spend a night, would be to go and sit around a table and hear stories.
I love that. Well, now guests can eat or they can not. And I'm kind of curious how that's going to impact that, right? Because there is something so special about sitting around a table and sharing. And I'm like so curious as to how big is the table? How many people can participate in the meal? And if you're not participating in the meal, are you coming in midstream? Are you coming in, or are you sitting on the edges? And how do you think that's going to impact everybody's experience? Or how are you going to draw those people in the same way as those who are eating food?
That's a really great question. I think that, well, the important thing for me is that it was accessible to anyone that wanted to come and see it. I didn't want to do something that was so prohibitively expensive that you could only see it if you could afford to come and see a thing and have a whole meal as well. So I wanted to make sure there were options for people who just wanted to come. And I think that it's in my mind that we do all arrive at the same time. It's still a communal gathering, whether you're eating the meal or not. We're all coming together at the same time. We're all gathering in the courtyard at the same time. And those people will be able to, I hope, go and get themselves a drink if they want to get a drink and sit down and have a drink with the stories, or some snacks from the bar. So it's not a hard divide between the people involved in the meal and the people on the outskirts. It will be everyone together. We'll all be sat around tables, regardless of whether we're one of the diners or if we're just there for stories. I certainly know there's been nights when I've gone for meals with friends and I'm actually just there for the stories anyway. So yeah, the hope is that we're all arriving together, we're all gathering together, and just making sure that people can afford to come, even if they can't afford to do the meal. I hope people are interested and excited to do the meal, because they will be linked to what we're talking about. But even if you're not eating, that shouldn't take away from your enjoyment of the stories and the music that we're pairing with the food.
Well, and how involved does the audience get? Is it quite an interactive show, or are people there? I was like, I'm just so curious, because if people are getting a drink or they're doing that, is there like chatter, like when you go to a coffee shop or someone's performing and there's, is that going on? Or are you creating this environment where we all really kind of hooked in on the storytelling? Like what is the atmosphere like, and how much do people get to participate other than eating food?
I think it's the gig-like experience in terms of like your intimate acoustic gig experience. The other kind of inspiration was, I think they're worldwide, but maybe that they're definitely in London, but So Far Sounds, who do gigs in unusual spaces with kind of surprise artists, so you don't always know who you're going to watch. But it might be in a living room, it might be in a bookshop, it might be in an art gallery. So that's my kind of benchmark and my feeling for the atmosphere that we create, where we're free to get up and go and get a drink if we need one, to move around. We're going to be, there'll be people serving food up, but ultimately the attention is on whatever stories are being told. And so it won't just be me and Jack. Me and Jack will have 3 main stories and songs that pair with each course. But between courses, we'll have our guest storytellers. And there'll be guest storytellers who are fringe artists, so international performers or musicians or storytellers, and that will change every time. That could be a musician, that could be a clown, that could be an author or a playwright, but just telling a personal story. So these aren't highly rehearsed guest spots. We're inviting people to just tell us a sort of 5-minute story, like The Moth, where you're just telling something authentically from yourself. And then the other guest storytelling spot will be our local storyteller spot. So luckily for me, I know Joanne Hartstone, and so she is so well connected with the Adelaide community that we'll be able to link up with some brilliant local people, and we'll get some stories from and of the place that we're telling stories in. So I'm really excited to hear those stories as well. And again, like all of these different storytelling nights that I've been along to, the most exciting stories tend to be, a lot of the time, it's people who didn't even expect they'd get up to tell a story, but feel, once they're there, they feel compelled to do so, that they want to. There's a storytelling night in London at the Rosemary Branch Theatre that they have a storytelling festival called Gather Together, which I've been a part of before, and James Rowland has been a part of before. And this year I'm hosting a night that James has hosted in the past, which is local stories, and the whole night is about inviting the local community up on stage to tell a story. And there's just a chair on stage, and the host facilitates, tells a few stories themselves, but is ultimately there to invite people from the community up on stage, and just, you kind of piece together this collage of where you are and who the people you're with, who they are. And it's magical. Like, it's incredible, and it's so simple, but there's a reason it's so ancient. There's a reason it's the thing that has endured. So yeah, that's the kind of shape of it. That's how it all fit together and work.
I'm like ready to get my ticket to, I'm like, you have convinced me. Like, I don't care how much it is. I want to eat the food. I want to be a part of it. I want to, I love that. It's really beautiful. Very, very excited. Well, we're coming here to the end of this. I could talk to you forever. This has just been like so delightful. And I love just how you uplift other artists, and you're a natural storyteller. I mean, I ask you a question and you go right into a story. And that is my kind of person. I do the same thing. I'm like, I don't know how to answer that question. I only know how to do it with a story. Let me tell you a story. And so it's just exciting to talk with other people like that. But I will ask you my last question, and you get a chance to tell a story. So it's so good. This is my ringer of a question for everybody. What has been your most interesting or awkward Fringe interaction that you've had? You've been doing Fringe for a long time. I'm sure you've got tons. Pick one out of the hat.
I probably have so many that it's going to be difficult to actually like isolate one thing, because so many things have happened over the years. I'm going to tell one that maybe I'll regret, but I just won't name any names. I was in Adelaide Fringe one year, and there's a musician who I'm a huge fan of. I've been a huge fan of them since the first time I went to Adelaide. I saw them and with a friend of mine that I was in a show with, and we were on board. We were fans. We bought all of the music. And that was that. That would have been fine. I'm really happy to continue being a fan. Years later, years pass, and a friend of mine, Phil Granger from Wright and Granger, who they're brilliant. They do loads of storytelling and music as well. We've been friends for years. They'd made friends with this musician, and he was like, "Oh, well, I'll introduce you." And I was like, "Oh no, God, oh no, I'll feel really awkward about that because I'm a huge fan." And he's like, "No, don't be stupid. Like, I'll introduce you. It'll be fine." I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, I don't know. And then one night he texts me and he says, "Oh, Casey, we're in the Garden of Unearthly Delights, and I'm here with the musician that you're a huge fan of. Come and meet us. I'll introduce you." I was like, oh, "Okay." So I go there and I find them, and there he is with the musician that I'm a huge fan of. And he starts out and he introduces me, and it's the best introduction ever. It's like your introduction at the start of the podcast. I'm like, wow. He's really given me a really strong intro. I sound really legitimate. Great. This is all going so well. And then he starts introducing the musician to me as if I don't know him, just so it's all normal and fine. And then he stops himself and he's like, "She knows who you are. She's a huge fan. She's obsessed with you." And I was so mortified. I was like, "Yeah, oh yeah." No, yeah, I do. Yes, I know you are. I've been a fan for years, and I kind of just sort of sunk into the floor and made my excuses. And I was like, oh, I'm just going to go and get a drink from the bar, and disappeared. And I don't think I came back. So that's the one that comes to that's the one that lives at the front of my brain because it was genuinely horrifying to me. He's a great musician. I won't say who he is.
Wonderful. I'll keep my eyes out. Thanks, Phil, for doing that. He was like he was doing such a good job. He's on a roll. And then he's like, I gotta speak truth. I gotta speak the truth. She's obsessed with you. Actually, here's what's going on.
There's a poster of you in her bedroom.
Yep. You're her screensaver on her phone. Oh, that's wonderful. Well, Casey J, it has been an absolute delight to visit with you today. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been so lovely. Really nice to talk to you. And I'll meet you in Adelaide. You're going to be there.
Yep, we'll be there. We will connect and have a drink, and I will not out you to any artist that you're obsessed with. So,
to be fair, there's a lot. And most of them are clowns. Normally it's clowns. So it was really unusual that it's a musician, really.
Oh, there you go. Well, I've got a few clown friends that are coming to Adelaide that you probably haven't seen, and you can have a new obsession. So it'll be great.
That's great news. Love clowns.
I know. I love clowning too. It's so great. The Wild Unfeeling World runs the 3rd to the 14th of March at the Yurt in the Courtyard of Curiosities. And Feast of Words runs on selected dates from the 28th of February to the 20th of March at Treasury 1860. Audiences can book that full meal with the show or just attend the storytelling portion only. And Jack Brett's Bedbug plays from the 12th to the 22nd of March at the Courtyard of Curiosities. All of those tickets can be booked on the Adelaide Fringe website. You can learn more about Casey J on her website at CaseyJ, that's spelled out Jay, Andrews.com. And you can keep up with her on Instagram at CaseyJ, again spelled out Jay, Andrews don't forget the dot, art. What the Fringe is produced and hosted by me, Lauren Hance. This episode was edited by Ben Ellis of Renowned Media, and those sweet tunes you hear are provided by Paul Snyder of Orchestra of Sound. And our logo was designed by Ruby Arnold of Ruby Makes Things. What the Fringe can be found on your favorite podcast platforms and on YouTube. Be sure to hit that subscribe button so you can stay in the know when new episodes release. Keep up with What the Fringe on Instagram at whatthefringe_productions and find us online at whatthefringeproductions.com. One of the hardest things about being a fringe artist is explaining to other people exactly what it is that you do. You start off on this very long monologue about fringe and how magical it is, and you suddenly realize they're just blankly staring at you. You pause, you panic, and then you say,
well, I mean, my parents had very sort of normal jobs.